is a design towards the aspirational sort of frame that Senator Corker had talked about. But I agree with Jonathan that it was more confrontational than it was unifying. And I think a lot of that has to do with
all right, Granny, they got some things to do.
What Trump and his allies believe is the mandate that they have for people to do big things on the big issues that they care about. And so, when you have a administration framed its charge as reversing the last 4 years and feeling a sense of liberation going forward, I believe that they believe that they had to have those that type of approach in order to get the big things done that they want to get done. And so I think it'll be a hallmark of this administration. They're going to move fast. They're going to move again with a lot of volume. They are not going to play along with a lot of the customs and traditions of how they Congress. They're going to be much more focused on driving a sense of momentum around their agenda and expecting their allies on Congress to come along. And I would say one last thing. I think that it was by design to be some repudiation of Biden and Harris, who are only sitting feet away. And I think that is probably the tone that I would expect over the next 4 years.
Yeah, can I do me okay for what, just to add on to that? I think this is a theme we've seen for years now, that a comes in, they've got control of Congress, they know they basically have a year and a half to get big things done for the people essentially who voted for them. They do that many times through legislation, through reconciliation, which we're going to see here. 2 years later, that party gets voted out of power in the midterms. And so you kind of have a system of government now where in a 48, 49 country, when you get your chance to be in charge, you got to take that. And you push as much as you can through knowing that there's likely to be a backlash 2 years later. And that, I think, is just a reality of where we sit.
That's what his speech, I think, laid out, is a vision of hope and the future going forward. He touched, obviously, on the last 4 years, which, you can start with the failed departure out of Afghanistan that emboldened the evils of this world, that put us in the position we're in now, that he's going to have to confront China and all these evil actors. We know that China is operating in the Panama Canal. He addressed that as well, and the need to, the deal was for Panama to control it, not Chinese businesses on both sides of the board. That's massive national security implications for our country.
All right, Grandma, baby.
More so, he was just laying out how bad it has been for Americans over the last 4 years, with inflation, with global wars, with an open, porous border, drugs, crime coming into every community in America. This is exactly what American people want, and I was encouraged. It was a call to action, all citizens, Democrat or Republican, that this is our country. This isn't Washington D.C.'s country. This is our country, and we can have an in the golden age going forward.
I would just say, add to that, I'd say Trump's interpretation of what bipartisanship is if you think about how he's approached immigration and diversity, inflation, even things like confronting, woke corporate. He believes he has a 70-30 support of the American public on those issues, and that's a bipartisan agenda that he is intent on moving toward.
We're about to watch the Bidens make their way to Marine One as they depart the U.S. Capitol. So we keep our eye on that live picture there. In fact, our two former senators who are joining us, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, former Republican Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee. Senator Brown, what struck me about this inaugural address, in comparison to the first one, we heard the then President Trump in 2017 paint a picture of America in decline. This address really painted a picture of an American establishment in decline. He said he had a mandate to completely and totally reverse the horrible betrayal. What do you make of that assertion, and how do you think that'll play politically?
Well, I made of it what I said an hour or 2 hours ago before the speech, was that he talks about like the establishment being surrounded on stage with all these California billionaires, and you can bet we didn't talk about this, but the main theme was we'll talk about immigration, we'll do some things, but the main theme is tax on the rich people to do that tax bill again that he did 7 or 8 years ago to, probably to make it bigger, to make sure the California gets its share, if you will. But no mention of the child tax, no mention of the bill that we should renew where 90% of the tax benefit, where the tax benefits went to 90% of the public. 60 million children, 2 million children in my state alone, their families, both with significant tax rates. We didn't talk about that, we didn't talk about the overtime rule. He did what Jonathan said, essentially, he did a speech about his own grievances, about the judicial system attacking him, about his pain, and about not about the country. And again, you've seen a lot of speeches for inaugural speeches, and this one about grievance, and this one about his own election. How many times he bragged about how much he won by. Reagan didn't do that. Clinton didn't do that. Bush didn't do that. Neither Bush. Obama didn't do that. The focus on workers instead of the focus on inflation. What do you see there with inflation other than talk? My wife Connie and I go to the grocery store after church often, and I hear at the checkout counter, I hear it at the checkout line, I hear it in the aisles, I hear the meat counter, I hear over and over about inflation, and the answer to that, in many ways, I know Amy talked about spending, but the answer in many ways is we're paying for corporate tax rates, we're paying for executives getting their stock buybacks, and no mention of that, and I don't think the president will go after that when it comes to inflation. So whatever he did in the speech is not that relevant. What matters is what he's going to do. Obviously, we'll judge by his actions, but I'm concerned that actions are mostly going to be about feeding the billionaires on the stage and not standing up to those interest groups that presidents should stand up for and stand up to, and in most cases, presidents are both
Unique to our system of government. This is the American transfer of power, demonstrating the resilience and stability of our system. President Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, Marine One, as they make their way.
All right, baby Nyla, you gotta let me get something done.
Trump and
Yeah, you gotta let me get something done
to the Capitol
today.
to resume a number of the days. Senator Corker, you're with us as well. Your questions on this moment, sir?
Obviously, a little less aspirational, a little more focus on, it reminded me of the photograph, of the court appearance that ended up being really well seen among his supporters of strength and defiance. And I think that is what he chose to reinsure here. He did speak, I listened to Senator Brown, my friend, he did speak to the issues that he felt collected him. And he was obviously very somber, and how he did so, somber about the state of the country, which whether you agree with it or not, many people felt that way, and that's why he is elected today. So again, it was less on the aspirational piece, far more on the business before him, the business that brought him here, attention and dealing with those issues immediately. So more of a business talk, less of raising people up.
We're watching President Trump, Vice President Vance make their way back into the Capitol. We understand they're going to be making their way to Emancipation Hall. It's an overflow room that has been set up when the ceremony was moved indoors. We understand he'll address the crowd gathered there as well. We'll bring you those remarks live when they happen. We're also watching here as former President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden prepared to take off and leave Washington. Also, Capitol Hill is on Lisa Deja has been following.
Peekaboo,
Lisa,
peekaboo.
what we just heard.
Peekaboo, big grandbaby. Peekaboo, big grandbaby. Yeah, peekaboo. Peekaboo. Might as well play peekaboo with grandbaby. She won't let me get nothing done. Peekaboo.
Now we see the end of his public service. But
Peekaboo.
as to the speech, David said something. He said the one word I didn't hear was China. There were two words I didn't hear. Senator Brown referred to one of them, taxes. Tax cuts is something something that the Republicans here are obsessed over, spending late nights already trying to figure out what could be a very difficult tax cut bill that they say is core of the Trump agenda. But that's not what we heard from President Trump today. The other thing, I didn't hear the word debt. The debt and deficit are also core concerns here at the Capitol, occupy not just a lot of time and policy concern, but they are, mind you, one of the reasons that former Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted. This is a Republican conference, especially on the House side, that has many members unsatisfied with the state of the debt and deficit. Didn't hear those from President Trump. And it reminds me that I didn't really hear much about the work that Congress needs to do. This was a speech of the executive talking about the presidency. But he does need to work with Congress, but I didn't hear
I
that.
love you. I love you, Grandpa.
White House correspondent.
I love you.
Also been
Yeah, but you won't let me get nothing done. You won't let me get nothing done,
now
Grandpa.
take off, as Lisa pointed
Come
out,
on.
capping that 52
Whoa, 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 whoa.
and his career coming
Somebody,
to an end.
somebody,
He did not
somebody. You wanna eat?
anticipate coming to an end. We know
Wanna
he
eat?
has warned against the incoming president as a threat to
Here, look.
democracy. And we know President
Here.
Biden was working up until the last minute of his presidency.
Here.
Tell us a little bit what's
Here.
transpired while we're watching this
Here.
phenomenal
Here.
proceeding.
In the final minutes of his presidency, before he was heading to the Capitol with now sort of Trump, President Biden issued some very last minute preemptive pardons to his family members, specifically a number of his siblings, James Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, as well as their spouses. And President Biden said that it was because of the fact that they were under threat, attacks, and he was referencing past promises made by Donald Trump to go after not just Joe Biden, but also his entire family. Trump had said that repeatedly on the campaign trail, as well as his allies said that they would go after Joe Biden and his family. And so in this preemptive pardon issuing, Biden said that it wasn't because his family did anything wrong or anything illegal, but that this was because he had no guarantee that his family would not be prosecuted. And so he decided to issue these preemptive pardons just minutes before his presidency ended on them.
And there was also a notable act of clemency for an indigenous activist. Tell us about that.
Yeah, real life.
That's right, Jeff. I don't have that one just in
There's
front
a
of
lot
me, but those
going
were other
on
pardons that the president
in
made,
my
adding
real
on
life.
to his
We
and
gonna talk
commutations that
about
he's issued, a historic number, more than any president to date, Jeff, and especially with a large number in the final few months of his presidency. And so that's something that a number of legal experts have said could very well be a legacy-defining moment for the outgoing president. But if I could, I'd like to highlight a few things that stood out from now President Donald Trump's speech, and specifically the significant focus on immigration. And in this speech, he was talking and saying all illegal entry to the United States will immediately be halted, and that he will direct to be returned back to their countries of origin. That's going to require some agreements. It's a lot easier said than done. That they will have to have agreements with countries saying that they are willing to take migrants back to the country of origin. And I was also talking to some legal experts about the executive order that is coming on ending birthright citizenship. And immigration lawyers that I was talking to today, Jeff, said that would be in violation of the 14th Amendment. The interpretation that the incoming administration is viewing the 14th Amendment, saying that it would allow them to stop automatic birthright citizenship for children of undocumented migrants, immigration lawyers say that is not the correct interpretation of the 14th Amendment and could likely very quickly be halted by judges.
We're watching as Republican House leaders make their way to Emancipation Hall in advance of those remarks that Amna mentioned that we expect to hear from President Trump, that overflow crowd standing in front of what is a replica of the Statue of Freedom. The bronze version of that sits atop the Capitol dome. And that commutation I was mentioning earlier, it was for the indigenous activist Leonard Peltier. President Biden commuted his life sentence, and he will serve the remainder of that sentence at home confinement.
So we see supporters of Mr. Trump there for the president to come address them, bringing that that live when it happens. In the meantime, we know other supporters are gathered at Capital One Arena. Our Stephanie Sy is there, has been speaking with them and watching as they watched the inaugural address unfold. Stephanie, what was the reaction there?
And Amna, you had to come to us right when this very noisy band started. But yes, 20,000, I would say, supporters. Capital One Arena is completely packed. And I have to tell you, as they were watching that live feed of the inauguration speech, it was as if President Trump were in the room. Because this is the crowd that he was clearly speaking to. And at times it felt like a WWE match, and at other times it felt like we were at a mega church. I would say the biggest applause lines were so varied in their content. He received loud cheers, for example, when he said, "America's decline is over." He received really loud cheers in the crowd when he talked about the assassination attempt against him and how he was saved by God. When he talked about Liberation Day, when he said drill be drill and ending the Green New Deal. And really big cheers when Elon Musk appeared on the screen and gave a thumbs up when President talked about going to Mars. And here's my observation after speaking to some supporters of Trump here. They largely follow what his agenda is. He decides, in a way, how they prioritize policy. And I think that is why you also saw really loud cheers in the room for him saying the U.S. should retake control of the Panama Canal, an issue that certainly hasn't been at the forefront of American politics as far as I can remember. So, they really follow him with so much fidelity, and that's what we heard over and over again. Now, just to remind you, the folks that are in here, some of them have been waiting all night in the cold just to get into the arena, and now we're starting to see more festivities as they ramp up for the arrival of the president in a couple of hours. This is, of course, where they will be holding the inauguration parade. I'm not sure how it will all play out, but in the last half hour, we've seen more military brass and those types of dignitaries show up. And just one disruption I noticed toward the end of the speech, a protester, a lone protester, who shouted "Free Palestine," and very quickly the crowd shouted her down and said, "Get her out, get her out." And indeed, security guards came and got her and took her out. Talk about coming into the lion's den to say that, and that is exactly how it felt. But overall, a very boisterous, energized crowd. Everybody woke up as soon as the inauguration proceedings began.
Applause for President Trump at the watch party at Capitol One Arena, and applause for him as well inside Emancipation Hall. Let's take a listen as it looks like Vice President J.D. Vance will be the first to speak.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And was that a hell of a speech or what? Man. That was a good way to start. I didn't know exactly what the president was going to speech, and I hope myself was going to hold back. I'm sure you didn't hold back. So it was a hell of a way to start the next. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I want to speak for the president and for all of us, thank you for making this possible. I love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. Having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Biden, thank God we moved that thing indoors because it was a beautiful ceremony. It was cold as hell outside. So for the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Nobody's right out there. Look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it. And then they went outside and we were freezing. We were very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive. You get cold.
Lila.
And I'm sorry,
Yeah, you know how to do it. Awesome.
Because the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little colder this time of the year, as some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either.
But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record. Because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them. You look better than them. And I love you. We just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when we took a journey. I mentioned this speech, and a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but a lot of people. And we hooked up with JD very early. I watched JD all the time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator, and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. So I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right?
No.
But,
Nah.
she's great, and he's great. This is
Nah,
a
it
great,
ain't.
beautiful couple, and
Nah.
unbelievable career. I just said very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard, and I said, "Oh, this may be tough," but after the smooth selling for him, he took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. We gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said, make it tougher. Let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they, is that moving?
Hey, moving?
Sure.
Move your leg.
I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one,
Your
and a
leg?
couple of others? He didn't mind, he could handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219? 220. Of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about doing that. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you, and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is, when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to him. So it's going to feel like putting your head on the wall and big. It feels so good to stop, but he's done a fantastic job. Steve Scalise is, he's our hero, because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him.
Yeah, Nyla.
The wife is like looking at her watch. She can't get out of the house. How's he doing? Really? I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was the doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's a big friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial.
Okay, we're almost done. We getting something done today.
It's such a beautiful, unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. Telling you, it's going to play great. They say, you're right, this group of people is going to play great. You're the only ones I heard by that bell, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir. Calls me sir. And she said, no. No, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there. And I was going to talk about J6 hostages. But you'll be happy because, you know, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. And I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like Unselect Committee of Political Thugs. They literally, I mean, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings. Actually, not a thing left. They deleted all the information on Nancy Pelosi having turned the over 10,000 soldiers. You wouldn't have needed 10,000 if you had 500, and it would have stopped. Because we may have 1 million people that day. People, you don't see any photographs of them. We have a lot of great photos. You don't see photographs. They don't put them in to show the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of the... I'll bring it up right now. You know, this little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews of the speech. You know, watch. They'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave him. Says, but no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers. Absolute murderers, the worst murderers. You know, when you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them. The level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed, and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them. But they didn't spare the people that they killed, and you know, who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. You know, they say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior in that page. It's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, you know, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Millie? Why are we doing that? He was pardoned. What he said. Terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crime. I never saw the guy not crying. He's not crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment, you know, where her father works, right? And, but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but out of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck of this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to, but all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caused, you know, Secret Service testified that it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe. I hear a lot of make-believe stories made up. So the story with Nancy Pelosi. I ordered 10,000 soldiers. She knows it. She admitted it on tape that her maid, she's a videographer or whatever you call her, which I'm glad she is. So she can't be in good stead with Nancy. But Nancy said it was my responsibility as she's leaving the cabinet. She said it was, and it